saw.
Hi, my name is Ian Ryan, and tonight I'm going to be giving a speech on the history of lacrosse for my informative speech. 20 years ago, people thought they were fishing nets. When you brought out a lacrosse stick, now almost everywhere you go, people have heard of it. They've seen it and they're like, oh, that's the sport I've seen on TV, or oh, that's the sport my grandson plays. It's changed the face of the game and the potential for the future. That's a quote by Gary Gait. He's a lacrosse legend and a CEO of Gait Lacrosse Equipment Company. The reason why I'm giving this speech is because I've played lacrosse for about 7 years. I've played 4 years in high school and 2 years in college, 1 year at Ithaca College, New York, and 1 year at Colorado State. Part of the reason why I'm giving this speech is because I have a great passion for the sport. I love giving back and informing people on the history of the sport and why it's growing in popularity throughout America and throughout the world. 1985, there was only 144 colleges that had lacrosse as a part of their sports programs. By 2015, that number grew to over 350 colleges. It's a very fast-growing sport, gaining a lot of popularity not only on the East Coast but also now on the West Coast. So to start off, I'm going to start with the history of lacrosse. It was first discovered by French Jesuits when they saw Native Americans playing it in the Huron Lake area, Canada, mostly New York. The reason why it's called lacrosse is because when they first saw the sport, their lacrosse stick resembled a bishop's lacrosse, which was a staff that they used in the Catholic Church. Back when Native Americans used to play the sport, the field often was miles long throughout the woods, and each team would have members of each tribe and young warriors. It was played partly as a sport to gain warriors like training for battle, and also to settle disputes between rival villages peacefully so it didn't result in war. The traditional stick was a wooden curve with leather strings on the inside, and the ball was often made of deer hide, using a goat bladder for the ball. Where lacrosse is today, in 1970, the sport transitioned from using wooden sticks to metal and plastic shafts. And by 1990, they used plastic heads on their stick. So a little bit more modern technology. Also, the helmet was introduced in 1950, and the later pads were introduced in the 1980s. The final rules of lacrosse were made by Dr. William Beers. He's considered the father of modern lacrosse. He standardized the lacrosse playing field and the standard 11 players per team. In 1947, though, the U.S. Lacrosse Foundation finalized the final rules of lacrosse and solidifying the positions of attack, defense, midfielder, and goalie. In 1931, U.S. Women's Lacrosse Association was formed, which was the first women's lacrosse league. The rules are slightly different. They don't use as many pads and they don't use a helmet, but it's still a sport to be enjoyed by all. In 1997, the U.S. Lacrosse Hall of Fame was formed, which is in Bethesda, Maryland, where they keep all the lacrosse greats and where you can have a nice history of lacrosse there. The future of the sport, it's considered the fastest game on 2 feet. You can see why it appeals to a lot of youth players because it's a lot more fast-paced and more engaging than baseball is. A lot of the reason why a lot of players shied away from the sport earlier is because of equipment costs. Full gear and a full shaft and everything can cost a couple $100 But thanks to programs like the Lacrosse Foundation and U.S. Lacrosse Magazine, they make charitable donations every year to youth foundations. And last year, U.S. Lacrosse donated $250,000 for urban sports, particularly lacrosse. In the next 3 years, there's going to be 57 colleges adding lacrosse to the NCAA sports, and with Title IX that includes both men and women's lacrosse. No other sport has even came close to that amount of support and desire for kids to play at the college level. So to summarize, lacrosse is the fastest growing game on 2 feet. Every year more and more kids are making the switch from baseball to lacrosse because it's more engaging, more fun to play, and it's clear to see why the Native Americans really cherish this sport and why it's growing such great popularity. Thanks, I hope you enjoyed the streams.
Yeah! Fuck yeah!